Good evening, visitors, and welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Jared Pratt, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Lieutenant Chris Boardman. We welcome the veterans who have served, those who are still serving, and the families who love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony from across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. If able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through until the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths of floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Albert Percival Adcock. Albert Adcock was born in the Adelaide suburb of Wayville on the 26th of November 1896, the youngest son of Thomas and Elizabeth Adcock. His father was the minister at the Wayville Baptist Church, which he had been instrumental in building, and would spend many of Albert's childhood years working as secretary of the South Australian Temperance Alliance and Reform Bureau. Albert was educated at Hindmarsh Public School and went on to work as a clerk. After a number of years working for D&J Fowler Merchants, he became an assistant cashier at the Electrical Supply Company. Having taken his parents' faith as his own, Albert also worked as a teacher in the Hindmarsh Baptist Sunday School. He was described as being greatly loved for his cheerful and manly bearing. Albert Adcock wanted to enlist in the Australian Imperial Force early in the war, but his parents insisted that he wait until he was at least 19 years old. He finally enlisted on the 14th of February 1916 and went into camp at Mitcham to begin his training. He left Adelaide on board the troop ship Anas with reinforcements to the 50th Battalion on the 11th of April 1917. Private Adcock was first sent to England, where he continued training at the Salisbury Plain. During his training, he was promoted to corporal and passed courses for non-commissioned officers and in musketry at Tidworth Barracks in the months after his arrival. Despite the fact that he secured good marks in these courses, Adcock reverted to ranks on his departure for France, joining the 50th Battalion on the battlefields of the Western Front in mid-December 1916. Private Adcock joined his battalion just after the onset of one of the coldest winters northern France had recorded. He remained with the 50th as it spent weeks rotating in and out of the front line in freezing conditions. In the new year, the German army began withdrawing to a strongly fortified position that would become known as the Hindenburg Line. In the new year, the 50th Battalion was involved in the following withdrawal. On the 2nd of April 1917, the 50th Battalion took part in an operation to capture an outpost to the Hindenburg Line, the French village of Noray. The 50th advanced on the village from the south, encountering heavy enemy machine gun fire as they went. The village of Noray was captured, but at a heavy cost. The 50th Battalion suffered more than 350 casualties, more than a third of its strength during the attack. One of the more than 100 men killed was Private Percival Adcock, fighting in his first offensive operation of the war. Little is known of the manner of his death, although it is likely to be the result of heavy machine gun fire coming from the village of Noray during the attack. Private Percy Adcock was buried not far from where he fell in a small cemetery with other casualties from the battle. In later years, the cemetery would be obliterated in other fighting and his grave was lost. Today he is commemorated on a special memorial in the Noray Australian Cemetery under the epitaph, "A faithful soldier of Christ and country." He was 20 years old. In Australia, the Adcock family were dealing with the serious illness of Albert's oldest sister, Eva Tucker, when he died. She died 5 days after her brother, the family receiving the news of Albert's death around the same time. Albert and his sister were commemorated together on a family headstone in the Hindmarsh Cemetery on the plot that would become their parents' grave. 1 year after Albert's Adcock's death, his family put a memorial notice in the Adelaide Chronicle. In the notice, they included an excerpt from Albert's last letter home, written shortly before entering battle at Noray. He wrote, "I am trusting God to help me through this battle, but if he wishes otherwise, I am still trusting." The notice concludes, "Thus another brave Australian has passed from the strife of battle to the peace of God." Albert Adcock's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Albert Percival Adcock, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you all for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.